Hello everyone, just watching the chat box. Welcome. It's lovely to see people arriving from all over, and feel free to say hello in the chat box and say where you're coming from. And you can see the names flying around, and saw Poland there, and Switzerland, and Colorado, and Australia. Amazing. Hawaii, New Mexico. Hello from Moscow and Denmark, Germany, Malaysia. I saw the word Avalon. Someone from Cortes Island, a very favorite place of mine, off Canada. Some hellos from Turkey. Hungary, Lithuania. Of course, a big welcome to all our friends in Romania and Bulgaria, Russia. New Zealand. All kind of time zones. I guess some of you are up in the morning very early, some of you are up in the middle of the night. All time zones. Is an amazing experience to Japan. Welcome, Keiko from Japan. Someone from down the road from where I live, in Dartmoor. Hello, didn't see your name, I just saw Dartmoor. Emily, nice to have you here. Hello from Ireland. Well, thank you for all being so punctual and on time. We're like at 1,063 people here. So I'll wait a few more minutes just and see who arrives. So maybe I'll begin by saying a warm welcome to everyone, and I also wanted to share that at some point we will introduce other members of the Gene Keys team, which is a big team, actually, an extended group of people who have really helped to make this possible. And there's always a lot of people behind the scenes with something sophisticated like this. So particularly I want to mention Elijah and Anton and Sally, Tanmayo, Riel, who's does all amazing admin, and all the volunteer admin, some of the admin team, and our volunteer ambassadors who you'll be meeting in the community calls. And if you're on the Facebook group, you'll see a lot of us kind of some of us coming in there and chatting as well. And Alitza also from Bulgaria, who's done an amazing job with our bursaries. Some of you have been talking to her. So we're around 2,000, so I think it's a nice number to begin on. Well, a big warm welcome to everyone. What an amazing time we're living in. You know, there's probably not a person here who doesn't feel some sense of the change that's taking place on this beautiful planet. You know, we're living during a time of vast change, and of course there's always change, and yet there are also crux points, and it feels like we're living in one of those, and we're approaching one of those. And we can now see with our eyes wide open the damage that our current materialistic worldview is doing to the planet, to our precious home. And so really what's needed is a new view, you know, a new view. And despite some of the attempts of some of our world leaders, we're not really seeing this new view emerging quick enough from our governments. But the new view is emerging, and it emerges where it always emerges, you know, through the eyes of the young, in the eyes of the awakening ones, in the eyes of all open-minded and open-hearted people. You know, that's us, you know. And there are many of these communities springing up all over the world, people who are doing this inner work particularly. So one of the things I wanted to say is that really what we're here for is we're here for the future generations. We're here for the children. That's my reason for doing any of this. You know, I want to be clear about that. Over the next 4 months, any transformation or any change that we pass through, either as an individual or as a group, we're laying it out for the next generations, you know, because they're going to be the ones who are truly going to have to grapple with the crisis, you know, and there will be a crisis. It's inevitable, you know. There's a lot we can do to avert like catastrophe in the next decade or so, especially. But in a way, there's, you know, there is something coming, you know, because our population has become so unsustainable and it's still growing. There's just too many of us. All of which brings us really to this moment, you know, and to the question, what can we do? And we probably all ask ourselves that question. You know, for me, the first thing we can do is we can trust. You know, that's really what this teaching is all about, my teaching anyway. It's about trusting the change. It's trusting that there's a pattern underneath it, and that deep inside us there's this power that's growing and awakening. And that awakening is bringing a new possibility, vast possibilities. You know, and I say, you could say we've all incarnated for this. Perhaps you could say that souls from all quadrants of the universe are arriving to experience this grand awakening, to lay the foundation for it. And the gene keys are a wisdom teaching that's specific to this new awakening. And it's a unique teaching in that way because it's designed for these times, and it's a synthesis. And so we're standing on the shoulders of giants, you know, all those teachers and teachings that have come before us, all those lineages that converge here. And it's our responsibility, in a way, to unify all those teachings, but without losing the integrity of any one of them. Because all the teachings that humanity and the wisdom that we've been given over the eons, it's all emerged from inside us, from inside our DNA, because we're a microcosm of the whole. So it follows that the Aquarian teachings are based on these fundamental patterns of the whole that are rooted in our body, in our very physical body. So whether you're new to the gene keys or whether you're an experienced voyager, you know, we're here for that one prize, really, spiritual embodiment, you know, which is a wonderful paradoxical term, because we're here to model a new humanity here in our everyday lives. You know, and the older models of the ashrams and the mystery schools, based on the renunciation. You know, those older models are being superseded now. They have to be. They're still around for those who need them. But what's needed now is a kind of open ashram, a mystery school right in the heart of the world, you know, rippling along the internet, connecting us in new ways, you know, a presage of the collective consciousness that's growing within humanity as more and more of us are awakening to this higher possibility. So as we awaken to our higher purpose, we get to model it in our relationships and in our homes and in our jobs and in our families, and we have to embody it down. And that's the challenge that's clear. You know, we have to strengthen and polish the inner truth inside us, and then we have to embody it everywhere we go. And then we're in correct alignment with this time of great change. So welcome to this deep dive, you know, and I'd like to begin by offering you a gift, little gift. It's a very simple, precious, beautiful little practice. And I do it every day. I usually do it early in the morning. It's my daily practice. And I offer it to each of you to consider also making it your daily practice over these 4 months, because you've made the commitment to be here. So why not extend that a little bit further and do this with me? Because there's over 2,000 of us, and if we all do this every day, it's going to be very, very powerful. You know, individually, it's going to be powerful, knowing we're doing the same thing at different time zones all around the globe, so it's going to be ongoing, but also it'll bring us together as a collective. And that's really one of the great benefits of doing this deep dive, of doing this process in a synchronized way over these 4 months. So I want you to know that every morning, before dawn here in the UK, I will be rising and doing this very simple little practice. And I invite you to do it with me. I mean, it's designed for early morning, but it's any day. You can do it any time of day. Some of you may know it. It's called the Holy Incantation of Solace. And it came to me one morning at sunrise. And it can be very short, or it can be stretched out as long as you wish. It consists of some simple prayers, some hand movements, some mudras, and I've made a couple of videos for you, which will be in the portal, the deep dive portal after this, so you can go back and revisit it really clearly, you know. And one of them breaks it down, and the other one's just running through it, because it might take you a little while just to learn it. Yes, the incantation, it's got 8 statements and 8 movements, and it's based on this word, wonderful word, solace. Solace really refers to the combining of the deep quality of peace, deep peace, and compassionate love. So I'll model it here. I'll go through it fairly quickly, and you can catch up later. But just like take it in. It's a nice way of attuning our group. And I'll do it. You can do it in the first person, or you can do it in the 4th person, the we, our. I'm going to do it in the first person first, and I'll do it at the end of the call again in the we version. May love pour through my soul. May light flower in my heart. May warmth radiate my belly. Put your hands on your belly. May purity shimmer in my bones. May kindness resound in my voice. May clarity shine through my mind. May solace abound in my life, touching all who I meet. May solace abound in the world, bringing all beings into perfect union. May solace abound in the world, bringing all beings into perfect union. Holy incantation of solace. Very simple. And as I say, you can stretch that out. You can do it standing up. It's beautiful to do it at the sunrise. So a little gift. I hope you enjoy it. So when you look on the site, the deep dive portal, you'll see that we've got a very clear framework over these 4 months. There's a storyline to the program, and we begin with the call to adventure, and it's about ascending the mountain, and it makes me, it kind of immediately reminds me of a sort of funny thing that happened to me in my 20s when I went to Nepal to walk in the Himalayas, and before going up on this long trek up to Annapurna Mountain, Annapurna Summit, not Summit, that would be another story, the base camp, to like an 8-day trek. You kind of, being like here, we just buy all the equipment, make sure you got your nice boots and all your gear before you go on the journey, waterproofs, everything, like really nice high-tech equipment. Spend a lot of money on it, right? And then we get there and we have this guide, and his name is Krishna, rather kind of appropriately. And on the way out, we're just heading off, and he's just got flip-flops on, and on the way out, he just pulls out of his backpack. I said, Krishna, where's your gear? And he goes, this is it. And he takes out of his little backpack a black trash bag, a garbage bag, rubbish bag, and he just rips a hole in the top, puts over his head, and says, this is what happens when it rains. I wear this. So he's just got this trash bag and a pair of flip-flops, and he did the entire walk in that. And actually was really good, because anytime we waded through a river or something, there were leeches, he actually had to he could just pick them off his body very easily, and we were like looking for them in our equipment. So there's a great metaphor of like, when you begin a journey, begin lightly, leave the equipment at the door. We don't need all that stuff. We don't need all those ideas, all the thoughts, even if you've like been around Gene Keys for a long time, start with this beginner's mind and put the concepts behind, and come in fresh. And there are many newcomers here, and I really welcome you. Really, you've got a lot to sort of get your head and heart around. And in the beginning, it can seem a bit overwhelming. And so I just, invite you to take your time and be patient with yourself, because the Gene Keys are not a quick fix system. And it may take you a while to just get it and get accustomed to it. And there's a lot of resources. There's a lot of resources available. So the beauty about this is an inner journey that we're all going to take. We've started today, and the journey begins. But it's an inner journey, and we fit that journey around our lives. But we're also doing it in company. So it's paradoxical in that sense. And you have to work out for yourself, how that's going to work for you, because it depends what kind of lifestyle you have. And maybe you might like to make a bit of time each day, or maybe you're more spontaneous and you're just going to kind of find the gaps intuitively. You know yourself, so maybe set yourself a little structure if you need to. You know, if you are the kind of person that needs the structure in order to do it, if you know that about yourself, then set yourself a structure. Do a little bit of self-discipline and set yourself a time each day to go into the material. And then the more structure you give yourself, the more magic has a chance to kind of blossom. So think about that, you know, after this webinar, before you begin the process. Like, how are you going to do it? How would you like to do it? What do you need? And you can adapt as you go along, but just apply to yourself, knowing yourself as you do and how busy your life maybe gets. A little bit of self-discipline. Also, for newcomers, especially, there's a lot of language and new language and a lot of new terminology. There's some big books. There's lots of things, right? And new words. And in the back of the Gene Keys book, you know, it's a big book. You can get the Kindle version, you know, which is obviously lighter. But the thing about that book, in the back of that book, there's a glossary and of all the terms. And there's also on the YouTube, my YouTube site, a glossary of terms that on video, where I describe and open up some of the terms. And it can help you understand what those terms are. So it's quite an empowering glossary as well. It's designed to be a contemplation in itself. So I recommend that. There's words, for instance, like the word siddhi, you know, which is a word that many of us have heard of. Some of us won't, you know, it refers to the highest aspect of our consciousness of each gene key. You probably all know that by now. But there is a lot of info. And if you take it one step at a time, then everything will move smoothly for you, just one thing at a time. And I recommend that you don't shift your step until you feel ready. So if you're moving slower than the collective is moving, that's fine. If you're moving slower than I'm moving over 4 months, that's also fine. Just find your own rhythm. You can always come back as well. If you're a speed person, you know, you can always come back. So I welcome all rhythms. And, you know, we're going to do in 4 months what some people would like to do in 12. And some people might do even quicker. But you need the time, because the time is there for like digestion, you know, because it takes time to digest this wisdom, as you'll see. I'll talk about that in a moment, because it's a contemplative process. There are also, because obviously we don't all want to spend a lot of time online, most of these things are now, the writings are in books which are available on Amazon. And so, for example, this little book is the guide to what we're doing in these 4 months, and it exists. You get this with it in this program as PDFs, and it's serialized in the steps, the 10 steps. But if you also want to just go through it at your own pace, you can buy it, as you know, so you don't have to be online all the time. So there are like a lot of options. And even the audios are also transcribed in a book called The 64 Ways. So it's all available there when you go and look for it. I will keep things as simple as I can for all of us. And what I really want to introduce us to tonight is the art of contemplation. Because people ask, well, how do you do the gene keys? You know, what is it? And usually I will answer that question by talking about the art of contemplation, because it's the central technique of the gene keys. So if there's any book you want to get, it's probably this one. Right, this is the hardback version, and currently I believe it's out of stock on Amazon, but we have got the softback version available through our shop on the website, and we can send it out to you. So while we're waiting for them to come into stock on Amazon. But it's a really nice little book. It's beautiful, it's simple, it's a book to read, reread. It's self-published as well, so that's why it's not so widely available. But basically, this is what we're going to spend the next 4 months doing. We're going to be contemplating the higher purpose of our lives. What a luxury to be able to do that. The beauty of contemplation, as I said, is that you can't do it in a hurry. It's not a fast word, contemplation. It needs this time. So we have plenty of time. We have 4 months. And even though we have busy lives, we will have to find our contemplation time. We'll have to find out what it is for us, each in our own way. Essentially, to contemplate means to digest something, to make space for something so that it can percolate inside us. And the gene keys are a wisdom transmission. They are something to contemplate. They require contemplation because they point us inwards. When I say they're a transmission, it's because they're more than just information. The writings, the audios, the profile, all of it, they're just signposts. This golden path we're doing, the gene keys themselves are just signposts that are pointing us inwards into the wisdom that already lies inside us. So the revelations and the insights have to come from inside us. If you get to listen to people who've been around the gene keys for a while, you'll probably hear something quite universal. They'll all say this. I guarantee they'll say it takes time to realize what kind of teaching this is. And at the beginning, it may just look like another teaching. There's a lot of information. You read it, you listen, you think about it, you try and understand it, and so on. But there's also something more to it. As you move deeper into the material, you begin to absorb its truths. And that triggers something inside you, a recognition, an insight, a breakthrough perhaps. And this is actually how the gene keys work. We contemplate them. We apply their truths to our lives. And over time, they trigger an opening of some kind inside us. It's a mystery how that happens. So it's really important to take our time, to be gentle, to move into the knowledge with this beginner mind, and then allow the mystery to work inside us. And the foundation of contemplation is to learn how to pause, really. So pausing is wonderful. If you don't get anything else from these 4 months, you could have 4 months of learning how to pause. And that alone can bring about a transformation in your life. And those around you will see a marked difference in your attitude, because you'll become more relaxed, you'll become more open, you'll become more available. Pauses allow us space so that insights can occur. And an insight is an aha. So this is when you've been around the gene keys for a little bit and you've had some of those insights, aha, I get it. When you've had those moments, then it's like, I want another one of those, and so you open a bit more and you open a bit more and you contemplate a bit more. And often they come at the funniest times. Often they come when you're not contemplating or you don't think you are, but it's in the background, it's percolating and in your unconscious, and then it pops up. Perhaps something someone says, perhaps it's a dream, perhaps it's, lots of different things, different ways it could occur to us. Like in our community calls, in the 3rd week of each of our months, we're going to have these community calls, and they're an amazing opportunity because often your insight comes from hearing someone else, and you're like, yes, when they say it, that's exactly the thing that I was feeling, but I hadn't put words to it. That's one of the beautiful things about having an inner journey that's done in company, is that we have all kinds of reflections and mirrors. And really, this is the first thing that I learned from contemplation, right? And it's a good challenge for all of us, is to pause in the middle of a task, not at the end of a task, and that's our thing. Like we say, oh yeah, I'm just going to get this done. And then I'll relax at the end, or I'll relax at the end of the day when I've got all these things done and out of the way. No, that's not pausing. Pausing has to happen in the middle. You have to actually have that moment where you have a breakthrough and just go, ah. And in the middle of the thing, that's when the magic is, because then if you can relax in the middle, then the rest of the task will unfold in a much more efficient and beautiful, poetic way. So I recommend reading The Art of Contemplation, and particularly the first part of it during this month or this time, because it will explain how to find these pauses in our life. And it really is about harvesting them. And I'm going to put out some videos each week that kind of bring a bit more, they're little breadcrumbs that open up a bit more about those pausing and how do we do pausing, you know, how do we I mean, it seems simple, it is simple, but it's also an incredible self-discipline, because pauses can happen on the fly. You know, you can have a moving pause, and pauses can happen because it's about your awareness, and they can also happen like in all kinds of instances. You can actually be very creative about actually creating moments of pause in your life. You actually have to create them consciously. So I'll put out some more about that, but it's also in the book. So that's really our central technique, is this art of contemplation. And it involves, yes, thinking, but it also involves deep feeling, and it also involves deep being. You know, so those are the layers. It begins with the thinking, and then it sinks deeper into our emotional realm, into our emotional body, as we begin to see, you know, the effects of the contemplation and its insights that it may be bringing us. And then eventually, as we do it more and more, it sinks into our body. And that's where we unlock some of those higher frequency words, you know, inside us. Then they're more than just words. You know, they actually become experiences. The signposts point us to the actual place, and then we reach the place. So that was my piece on contemplation, and really important. And I will go on weaving the thread of contemplation throughout these 4 months. So by the end of 4 months, we're really hopefully going to know, all of us, what it really is, and we'll find that we're doing it, and that we have become a contemplative, which we all are already, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But it's like, how can we deepen that and really use it to find some of these treasures? So the gene keys, what are we contemplating? That's the technique. Now the material. You know, we're contemplating these 4 gene keys in our profile in this sequence called the activation sequence. And it is the beginning of one's journey, many people's journey into the gene keys, because it activates something inside us. And that's why we begin with purpose. We begin with life's work, you know, and what is life's work, and evolution, and the radiance, and the purpose. These are these 4 themes, these 4 gene keys that you will be contemplating over 4 months. And there are 3 pathways between them. So it's a journey. And the metaphor of the journey is a mountain climb. You know, it's quite ironic, really, because we call this the deep dive, but actually it's not really. I mean, it's also a steep climb. But I think if I call it the steep climb, probably half of you wouldn't have shown up. So, you know, the steep climb is that we're going to go on this journey, you know, up the mountain, and you know, we're going to watch these webinars. We're going to follow these steps. We're going to, you know, it's all laid out for you in the Golden Path program, the online program. It's all laid out in these steps. And each gene key also, so you have your gene key, but it also has one of 6 lines. And so you're also going to contemplate that gene key, but also its line. And you're in the text that comes, you'll see, you know, that's an additional aspect that you're going to do. I mean, some of you who are new, it might be a good idea, Elijah, if you want to share your screen and just very quickly show people, in case you're not sure how to find the lines in your profile. Thanks. If you go into the system it's not switched on as a default. So if you go into the system, you'll see down here, yeah, thank you, that there's a little box. You have to switch that where it says lines to on. And then you have after the gene key, you're like, there's number 39.1, that's line 1. Yeah, so you click it and then you see that's line 1. And then there's a keynote that goes with it, self and empowerment. And each of the lines appears there. And the lines are quite important because they add an extra dimension to the gene keys that you can read about in the text when you get the text. So line 1 is creator, you know, line 2 is dancer, and these things have like a deep meaning that you can help. It can help you to understand the sort of flow of your style of learning and life. So really important to kind of know that. When we're talking about this profile, one thing I want to say is people ask about the profile and they kind of, because it's based on astrological information, people often think it's like astrology. And in a way it is, but it isn't as well. Because the profile isn't who you are, you know, it's not who you are. So you can have two different profiles. I mean, two people born at exactly the same time, they're exactly the same profiles. So it doesn't mean you're the same. It's just your journey. This is your journey. So you have the same journey, but you, who you are, is a mystery. That cannot be caught in any number, in any pattern or sequence, or, you know, who you are is a deep mystery. But the journey is really interesting, you know. So I wanted to just share like one further thing with you, and a map that I've devised, very simple, an additional tool that you can use, a kind of life map. Get it on. Just give me a moment. Oh, I think we both started at the same time. I'll let you do it, Elijah. So can you see that, everyone? Yes, there we go. It's a few slides. So it's a nice way of looking at these 4 quadrants, these 4 months, these 4 gene keys, you know, and it's a new way of looking at it, but it's nice because so we're starting with our work, our life's work, which is the top left there, the sphere of your life's work. And what you can see here is that everything over to the left is to do with our inner life, and everything on the right is to do with our outer life, and everything above the middle line is to do with the past, and everything below is to do with the future. So when you look at just the first quadrant, we're looking at the past. We're looking at like the work that we have brought, our karma, you know, our life's work, our karma. This is our karma that we brought with us. It's come with us from before, and it's something that we have to, you know, work on inside ourselves to transmute it. You know, we have to clear that karma. We have to have done, ideally, done that life's work by the end of our life. If we haven't done that inner work, we have to come back and do it again. So there's a store in that gene key, in this first gene key of our life's work, because it's come from before. So we've got to work through it on the inner. And then when you move to the next one, you'll see the outer work, the sphere of evolution. This is where the past gets worked out through our outside life. It gets worked out through our relationships. So the inner work becomes our outer work. It's all one thing. All these 4 are one thing, actually, but it's a way of breaking it down into a sequence. So we begin with the inner work because we have to understand that those terms of that, you know, when you put in your terms here, so here's the outer ring is the ring of the shadow. So I've put in mine here, and I've also put them in as adjectives, so they have a bit more humanity to them. All right. So my inner work is about confused, about being confused when I'm confused, when other people confuse me, you know, and And that work is like a constant for me. Like, how am I going to overcome the confusion of who I am and it's what's led me to this work, for example. And then but what's useful about this map also is when you can write in your other ones, you can write, my outer work is doubting, right? So those two are linked. And then the other ones you can write in as well, the self-love, which is the radiance and the ideal. So you're going to take your gene key, shadow keynotes and write them in here. We'll give you some blank PDF so you can play with this. But what you get to see is you get to see them all as one field, like the shadow field. This is my shadow field. This is something that interferes with my life purpose, and I have to do this work internally. So I have to learn to overcome the sort of boredom of the drudgery of working with the shadow and the impatience of not trusting the timing of when things come, and the self-doubt that niggles away inside my mind that just goes, and that causes that confusion. That's a whole realm. So it's really nice to do it in this way, and it helps us to understand. And then you can put in the gifts. You can go, well, this brings things up a bit. I can use I'm imaginative, I'm inquiring, I'm patient, I'm adventurous. Like, those are 4. That's when I take that shadow energy and I convert it into, so each one contains the gift. So the shadow contains the gift. So the confusion contains the germ of imagination, of my gift of being imaginative, to imagine my way out of things, to imagine all kinds of things. And imagination is not just making stuff up. It's not the same as fantasy. It's a creative way of working with confusion. And the same with inquiring, like doubt. Doubt is saying something here needs to be looked into in more depth. It's not just something that's going to undermine you. You actually have to go a bit deeper. So each of these, keynotes can be brought alive, but it's helpful to see them in their fields like this sometimes, because as humans, we live in fields of frequency, and they interpenetrate. And so, at the core here, the essence is, is the absolute, what we call the siddhis, which is the deep truth that lies at the core of each one of us. Illumination, truth, boundlessness, timelessness. These are my words. They're just words. And all those siddhi words, those highest aspect words, are just words that are pointing us towards that center, that core, which is the eternal present. It lies between the past and the future. It lies between the border of the inner and the outer. It makes a mockery of all those words, in fact. It's beyond the words. It's the wordless. So it's a gift that you can play with this. Here's, I put in mine, so you can we'll give you a blank one as well, so that you can color it in and you can draw in it, or it's a nice map to work with and begin to kind of use in your journey. So I would advise color it, work with it in the quadrants. So this is where we are starting this first month. Inner work. It's all about inner work. It's like about this karma. What are those 3 words for you of your gene keys, and what do they mean to you? Here's like mine. I'll show you how I'm applying them right now in my life. My life's work here is to overcome this confusion. And the thing about confusion is that it moves. It moves realms. So, once you've mastered money, you then have to deal with confusion in relationships. And then if you've mastered confusion in relationships, you then have to maybe deal with it in health, and then maybe you have to deal with it in lots of different places. It's everywhere. Okay. So you have to keep on, the work just goes on. And, for me right now, my current edge is my oldest teenager. He has this gene key of provocation, right? And so, sometimes it's his confusion that kind of triggers me. So sometimes the shadow is actually triggered externally, but it leads you to the state inside you. And I've noticed that for me, like sometimes when I'm triggered, I behave in a kind of parental sanctimonious way where I'm like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you know. And, you know, whenever I take that attitude with him, it makes everything worse. It's disastrous, you know. And so what my edge right now with that I'm working with is like this area, like my gift is imagination. How can I imagine a new way of responding to that challenging behavior? And maybe how can I reimagine my whole relationship with him? And this, you know, and so that it kind of shines, so that I can actually accept all that behavior, but also where will I bring in a boundary if necessary, you know? And, you know, that's the work, you know, that's going to be one of my edges throughout these 4 months, I can tell you, because that's what's current for me. And illumination is really when I can bring that love and that wisdom from my core down into this relationship. I can embody those spiritual principles in this relationship, in this life. So think about that with yourself. Ask yourself, where is your edge? And apply these gene keys, these 3 words, to your current edge, and see if you can unpick some of those stories. I'm going to encourage people, if you want to, you know, give me some examples in the chat box. So give me some of your words, like what are your words, shadow, gift, city, of your life's work. You can write them in. Anyone? So these are, I'm looking for the words for your gene keys, for your life's work, the 3 words. Someone wants to put them in, or just put in a number of your gene key. Anyone want to?
Check out the chat function. They're definitely rolling in.
Yeah, okay, so arrogance was one I saw. Arrogance, leadership, humility. You know, there's a story there. Where is that arrogance showing up? And arrogance can be very, very subtle. It's very difficult for us to see our own shadows sometimes. You know, it's very difficult to see something like arrogance or vanity. You're like, well, I'm not vain. I'm not, you know, even saying that is vain. You know, I don't think I'm arrogant. And so you've got to find out where it lies, where it lives. And you can guarantee it is the place where, you know, where it's the place where you're having the most difficulty right now. You know, there's another one, distraction. You know, where are you distracting yourself? Fantasy. Where are you drifting off into fantasy and losing yourself when actually, you know, there's something creative. You could be applying that same energy in a non-destructive way. So have a look at yours, you know, oppression, transmutation. It's great to just see all those words like oppression, transmutation, transfiguration. Those are big words. And if you're a newcomer, to really get into these words, you know, you'll see that as you go into the program, there are audios that describe them in like detail and depth, that I tell the story of every one of those words and the journey through those words, through your gene key. And through reading in the book, obviously you're going to get more information about it. But ultimately, so you can read your gene key, but ultimately it's going to be through applying it as a contemplative way. So struggle, you know, struggle, unease, these words. Have a look and see in your life, you know, where they apply, but choose the thing that's most current for you. And you'll see that that shadow is somewhere embedded in that issue. And that can lead to an insight, especially as you begin to unpick what is the gift inside this shadow and what's hidden. You know, what is the illumination? What is the city? What is the greatest thing behind it? So, yeah. Self-obsession. It's a good one. Self-obsession. The other thing you can learn from this is that every single one of these we have, all of us, You know, so every single one of us has the tendency towards self-obsession. Every single one of us has the deep sense of unease somewhere because we've been born. And yet the word that's specific to you is a key and a code that takes you on this journey that can really open up, you know, something magical for you. And that's really what the gene keys are all about, that process of unpicking the true meaning behind these words. Okay. I didn't want to overload you too much in this first call. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave you with those things to contemplate, those things to look at, play with that, you know, the past, the future. I'll talk about this more as we go on, and we can fill in the story a little bit more depth. But essentially this month we're climbing the mountain. You know, we're going up these paths and we're going to start exploring these words and these terms and applying them to our life. Like, where is my true inner work right now? And creating a space of contemplation so that insights and openings can occur around that. Light can emerge from inside our DNA, literally, because that's where the light is locked. It's locked inside our DNA. And this process of gentle contemplation helps to open that up and then releases it from inside the DNA. They're codes. We are just a series of codes, every human being. So what I am going to do is I'll open up some questions in a minute, but I want to give you a few little morsels of practical advice. We can stop the slideshow. Yeah, so some practical advice for moving forward. First thing is watch the orientation video because it's really important. It teaches you how to use the resources in the deep dive, and it's been beautifully done by Elijah, and just goes into all those details about everything that's available and how this process is going to work. The other thing I wanted to encourage you to do is download the Zoom app. You know, when we come and do our community calls in the third week, it's a good idea to download the app, the Zoom app. You have to do it before you come in. Otherwise, you may miss the breakout calls, because in those community calls, what happens is we all arrive in these groups, they're time zone groups. So you first of all choose your time zone. You'll see this. Elijah explains it beautifully in the orientation video. And you can choose as many as you want. And you then get put into groups around these themes, and we're given questions and things to consider about our life's work and stuff. And you're put into a group of like 3 or 4 people, 4 or 5 people. So you get to meet each other, but you also get to kind of contemplate the same things together. And that can be very magical because there's a great synchronicity that operates at that level with what you hear and who you end up listening to and being with. Also, obviously, we're having to deal with technology, and technology has its own challenges. So I just want to really remind us to remain calm. You know, if you get one of those technology initiations, just trust in it. You know, this is going to be your first challenge. Like, just trust in it, give it some space, you'll figure it out. There's a whole team of people here who are here to serve and help you. And if you do get lost or confused at any point, you can go to the support and FAQ section on the retreat homepage. That's some of the practical stuff. I would also say, just to reiterate, go at your own pace in this deep dive. You know, as I said, there's a lot of material. Don't worry if you don't find the time to read it all or watch everything. The most important thing is that you focus on pausing and you give some space to contemplate this map with these 3 words. I mean, the first gene key in your profile, those 3 words that we just looked at, whether it's dislocation, you know, arrogance, those 3 words and how they relate to each other, you know, and the line number, you know, whether it's dancer, server, you know, whichever one of the line numbers you have. you know, and when you get to that state, you can download the PDF of the little book, and it will tell you about your line number and what it means, and you can add that into your contemplation. And it's really important to read the other line numbers as well, because then you get to see, well, this is what I am and this is what I'm not. And also in the webinars, I talk through the lines very clearly. You know, I talk about them right at the beginning. So, and they're not that long, these webinars that you'll find in there. So take your own time, but the minimum is focus on pausing, create space to contemplate those three words, those first three that gene key, and those three, that spectrum of those three words. And above all, follow the steps. You know, they're nicely numbered, 1 to 10. Start with number 1, follow the steps. Number 1 will say, read this, listen to this, watch this, do this. And once you've ticked all those boxes, move to step number 2. Okay, it's very simple. It's very nicely laid out. So, you know, you listen to your audio, you read it from the book, and that, you know, do those things. And your journey will unfold, I think, in a natural, very nice way, I hope. So, I mean, I can't answer billions of questions, but I'll pick a few, and maybe if you can like hold back and just maybe a few of you put in your questions, and I'll answer like 3 or 4 just so that we have some, you know, nice exchange at least.
We have one quick one that several people asked, which was,
okay, great.
What is the name of the painting behind you?
Oh, that's a nice question. Actually, I should name it. It doesn't have a name, but it is. It's Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's done by a Californian artist, Marco. I can't remember his surname. And it's funny because I went to visit a friend where my daughter was learning the cello and this was on the wall, and I was like, wow, that's an amazing painting. I was just really drawn to it. Because there's Jesus sitting there with these animals and the angel and all his disciples are asleep around him. And it's very enchanting. Anyway, it turned out every time I went past that, because I had to drive past that house on the way to work, every time I went past that house, I thought of that painting. I was like, I really like that painting. I'd love to see that again. And it turned out it ended up in my house. Isn't that a magic? I don't even tell you how it happened, but you know, someone said, oh, you know, you really like that painting, you know. And then I was moving and I couldn't take it with me, so I sold it, and I wanted to sell it, so I bought it immediately. So there it is.
Another question came from, if you could, one important one was, do you recommend doing the prayer of solace and incantation of solace in their native language?
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to translate that into your native language, I should think that will probably have an even deeper resonance for you, and share it with others in your native. I mean, share that you know, with anyone. You know, it's a really lovely practice to do collectively or on your own.
And with the life map that you showed, could you talk a little bit more about what the past future axis meant, just so that they...
Yeah, can you pull it up?
Yep.
Yeah, so as I said, so the past, that's perfect. So we, you know, this is the irony of like having a past and a future. Like the past is what we brought with us. We've incarnated with. You know, this is like about our incarnation, and the future is what we are kind of laying the foundation of. So by doing the inner work, we are kind of opening up the portal of this self-love, and then we're laying down the ideal of our purpose, you know, through the outer work we do in the world, through this transformational work that we do in our outer life. But it's so all 4 areas are kind of brought in. But so it's also the other way you could look upon it is the ideal of the future, because the future is not always, you know, you don't always have to look at it in the future. It's also coming down, towards us, as much as the past is kind of coming towards us. So we are like in the core, in the middle of this axis of forces. But essentially, yes, the journey that we're taking is towards this ideal, that we are laying down. So one way you could look at this is, you come into this world of form, you incarnate, and you bring with you this karmic storyline, and then you're laying down this future, this ideal of the next one, or the next phase of your journey, by fulfilling that purpose, that deep purpose. So this is the activation sequence. It's the sequence that has to go through. You have to do this work in order to unlock that self-love, that radiance, and then embody fully in the body the higher ideal that's trying to land inside you. And that's the journey, that's the lightning flash journey, between the inner life and the outer life, between, there's a veil in the middle, across the middle, this veil that you'll see in the webinar, between like the past and the future, the veil of the conscious and the unconscious. It's interesting, you can look at it from the point of view of the city and the shadow, which are actually like the unconscious and the superconscious, and how closely connected they are. So our shadow leads to the city, and the gift is that middle ground, is that creative empowerment that that brings it into form. That's one way of explaining it. One more question, let's do. I like doing threes. Did you see a good one, Elijah?
There's a few logistical questions that I'll help answer, but how about there's a lot of different questions about specific keys.
Of course.
Which, there's two things I think are good thematics. Is how does meditation fit into this into the Gene Keys practice, and also lucid dreaming. I thought that might be a nice riff from you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. So in the intro webinar, I which is available here, you'll watch it in step 1. I talk about contemplation, and I place it in the context of meditation and concentration. So meditation on one side, concentration on the other side, contemplation down the middle, all paths towards the same truth. And so you could say that meditation, as I'm just explaining it here, understanding it, is the path of yielding. It's the yin path. It's the path where you witness, you enter into the witnessing mode, you wait, you close your eyes, you go into this inner state, and you just watch your breath, or you're just waiting, you're just witnessing, you're just allowing. And then on the other side, you've got the path of concentration, which is a more yogic path. It's more like you might have an absolute practice. So that could be your meditation practice. Well, it could be like I do Kriya Yoga, or I do Kundalini Yoga, or I do some kind of discipline, or I do Karma Yoga, or I do some form of like work that is moving me towards truth. So there's one that's not doing anything, it's just waiting and watching and allowing, and there's one that's carving the way towards the truth, concentration and meditation. Now, that's a simplified way of looking at them, but for our purposes of understanding contemplation, in a way you could say contemplation's in the middle. It borrows from both of those because it uses the patient space of creating pauses so that things can come into clarity on their own, but it also takes an active role in like actually concentrating on a Gene Key, or it could be a great guru, a sage, or an enlightened being, and you focus your whole awareness on that, and you're concentrating, and then you also allowing at the same time. So you're contemplating them, you're using both sides proactively. And also you can use your creative imagination, so the imagination becomes quite important in contemplation, because imagination can kind of lead you up higher and higher into the field of light. But I would say that because that's my gift. So, of my life's work. So the other one was lucid dreaming. Contemplation goes on, once you begin to work with it and saturate yourself in a subject or a field, and you're working with it, like the gene keys transmission, the wisdom, it begins to work in you on different levels. And one of those levels is it begins to sink in a different way at night when you're asleep. It's kind of interesting for us as a big group doing it, because some of us are awake and some of us are asleep at different time zones. So in a way, we're all involved in this collective contemplation. And this transmission is weaving between us. You could look at it like that's weaving. It's lines of light between us all. So one person has an insight over here. It's transferred maybe to this person over here. And it's like, that's the power of a collective contemplating the same material. That's why it's so incredible to be able to do this in this age where we have the internet. You couldn't do it otherwise. I mean, it wouldn't be easy logistically. So I think the question is an interesting one. I don't know the answer. I think some of us may find the answer from going into this together as a collective contemplation, and then seeing where it takes us into the dream life and how it impacts our dream life and what it brings up. And that's why the importance really is doing the practice first thing in the morning or last thing at night or both. And you could do your own practice, of course, but like take those words in to your, take the whatever form your intuition wants to kind of sculpt, out of those words, out of this gene keys. You have to use your own imagination and your own intuition and follow that, up the mountain. You're going to find your own path. We're not got the same paths. We've all got different paths up. Now and again you bump into someone and go, oh, hi, how did you get here? And then you cross off and you keep going. Our paths are different. So for some of us, we dream very powerfully. Others, our dreaming is kind of not such an open path for us. It's a different way we have. So good question. And I think it takes me in a way into the closure, because I'd like to say some words about this collective, working as a collective. And when you do the invocation, the incantation of solace, or any other exercises or prayers, or this contemplation of the gene keys, hold the whole group in your awareness as well. Just know that we're doing this together, in our own timing, in our own way, through all those countries that we saw, all around the world, and this mystery is being woven between us. And we are part of a collective, of a what I call a fractal, which is a specific group that's been drawn for whatever reason at this time to this particular teaching. And that means that there's some symmetry that has brought us together, and there's synchronicity at work, and magic can be unlocked through that. And so expect the unexpected, but dream into the whole, dream into the collective. So hold a prayer for the whole. I've actually been already feeling everyone coming in, and in my morning sessions, I've been like thinking of you all. So really nice to do that practice. So let's do the solace as a closure. Since we open with it, we can close with it. But we'll use the we words this time. And then we can go back out into our lives. May love pour through our soul. May light flower in our heart. May warmth radiate our belly. May purity shimmer in our bones. May kindness resound in our voice. May clarity shine through our mind. May solace abound in our life, touching all who we meet. May solace abound in the world, bringing all beings to perfect union. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your commitment, for coming here, for embarking on this courageous journey, for having the openness to dance in this field of wisdom. I look forward to sharing more and seeing where it leads us. I'll see you in the program because you'll keep seeing me in there. And I'll be praying and tuning into all of you every morning and through most of the time of these 4 months. So, blessings to you all.